What's the difference between sales and serving? That's what we're talking about today on the Founders Table podcast.
Welcome back to the Founders Table podcast. I'm Drew Sanford, and we've got
Stefan Bunch. And this podcast is all about reaching out and talking to business leaders, people that are building something, people that are in sales, entrepreneurial. It's a conversation we like to have all kinds of things when it comes to CRMs, building systems, processes. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Elevate, and that's one of our businesses. It's the real estate sales team that we have. And I'm excited to have the conversation because in real estate, as a realtor, I mean, aside from lawyers and car salesmen, realtors as a whole are kind of seen as one of the least trusted industries in the sales world. And so I wanted to talk about what makes Elevate a little bit different. And if you're a salesperson, no matter what industry you're in, how some of these things I think can make you stand out as well.
I love it. I think it's one of the most important things we can do. And like you said, and you could, I'm going to use the used car salesman, and no offense, because I've sold equipment and boats and you name it too. So I've kind of been in that industry as well. Yeah. But connecting with people and getting trust and getting that affirmation is always a really important step. And I know when we started the real estate side, like I wasn't in real estate in any way, but me just thinking about real estate agents, that's kind of what it was. And we really worked hard to position ourselves different at Elevate than the normal agent. You see agents dancing on furniture and doing silly videos and
trying to get a ton of views, but not really any
and what's the VBR? What's the valid business reason for it? Right. Yeah. So like we went down the path of how are we super pro agents? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the field is. 10% of plumbers are in the top tier that make 80% of the money. 10% of agents make 80% of the money. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, the top always gobbles up the most. And I think, and it's an opinion and it's not always right, but I think if we were going to position ourselves as a new business, we positioned ourselves as professionals, because I think if we are the professionals and we do the right job, people know us for that. I think that gives us the best opportunity to be in that top 20% of income earners.
Absolutely. Let's start all the way from the beginning. Anybody getting into a sales role, I'll kind of share a little bit about my feelings at the very beginning of this thing as well. Yeah. Not as we started Elevate, but when I first got into a commission role. So prior to that, I was on staff. I had a salary. I knew every month when my paycheck was going to be there. My wife knew every month when her paycheck was going to be there. And so it's no matter what you do, good or bad, you're getting paid and you know it's going to be there. Mm-hmm. Jumping out of that role into a commission role, and for me, it was real estate, but it could be any sort of sales role. There was zero guarantee on any sort of income coming in. Mm-hmm. And so right off the bat, anybody that jumps into this has this feeling, it's this struggle between, I have to make a sale in order to provide for my family, which is a good pressure to have. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, sometimes, and I think a lot of times, with whether it's real estate, whether it's car sales, whatever, the agent has their perspective of what they need, their goals of what they need to make, all these kind of feelings that they have. If they get something under contract and it's going to closing, then not only is the buyer or seller going to have to close a deal, but the agent is feeling pressure because they're not going to get a paycheck until that thing closes. And so when you're in that kind of position where you're like, I've got to make money, I don't have a guarantee, there's a lot of times, and this is why real estate agents aren't always that trusted, because they have their own skin in the game. And if it doesn't get to closing, all that time, money, effort that went into this process is now all for naught. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people feel like when they're working with the real estate agent, that the agent is pushing just as hard to get to closing for their own benefit than maybe what's best for the client, right? Mm-hmm. And so one way that we've been really focused on positioning ourselves in a different light is this idea of serving versus sales, and how we feel like they can mesh together rather than being like the driving force to get to what we want. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think as we look at our business Elevate this year, I think that's where I always use the analogy shifting gears. You know what I mean? Like we do really good at video editing and podcasts and stuff like that. So like, oh, we're doing that. Now all of a sudden you look at all the other real estate companies in our area and you see a bunch of people doing the same thing. You know, they've got a background and they make, you know, the stuff. Yeah. Shift gears. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? I think for us, when I say we're going to shift gears for Elevate, I think we did a lot of training and practice this year on what it looks like to put the outbound effort into sales, what it takes to become a successful salesperson, what your day looks like, what the CRM looks like, what all that kind of
the back end
101
process,
sales training, like
baseline.
We've set the baseline, we've set the stuff. Now, I think as we shift gears for our company, I think year 2, it's a lot more sales specific training where you actually, how do we take a person and say, we're going to turn you into a great salesman. And I mean, this is, I don't know where my brain is going 100% with this, but like you can yield the power for good or bad, right? Like you could be one of the best salesmen in the world and you can help people really well. And you could be that guy, or you could be the best salesman in the world and sell a dumb widget that nobody needs. And then you just scam everybody and do that. Right. Mm-hmm. And you can use the same skill set in the same toolbox. And you could go way left of center or way right of center, and it could be good or bad either way, right? So
100%.
I think sales, you know, then you start getting into emotions and talking, you know what I mean? Like when you really start diving into that, the psychology of people and then using that with sales, again, you're playing with a really, you know, are you yielding the sword to bend them to benefit you, or are you using the sword to get a lot of clients so you can help more people?
1,000%.
Yep.
And I think that's where Elevate has made that shift.
Yep.
So first of all, as we started Elevate, went from being an individual agent to building a team. The first and most important thing that I think that we did is we took our investment up front and put our money on the table. That way we had a baseline to begin with, to we were not the hungry agent that had to make a sale to survive, right? Mm-hmm. And so the stat of 71% of agents haven't made a sale this year. They are hungry to just get something together, mm-hmm. and they're going to force things together. Yep. We were able to really focus in on outbound, getting clients to come in to where we have a strong pipeline, to where if one deal starts falling apart, we're not forcing it. We're the level head in the situation because we know we have a steady pipeline of business coming in and moving through the process. Does that make sense?
100%.
And so it helps us to differentiate between now we can fully, like, not just cliche, but we can, and not only just say it, but do it, literally meet with every client and say, what is the goal? What's the best outcome for you? And if something changes, then we can adjust. Mm-hmm. And when you're in a transaction in real estate specifically, there's a lot of emotions on the buyer side, seller side, agents, lenders, appraisal, all the things. If the agent can be the level head and say, you know, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I'm good. So let's actually look at the nuts and bolts of this thing and not have the emotions in the midst of this. Yeah. We can truly lead through the situation.
Yeah. And I think if you're watching the show and you're, you know, a business owner or a young person starting, and when I say young person, again, I don't mean young. I just mean like if you're starting your entrepreneurial journey and you're at the beginning of that, what I look at is I kind of break sales up into certain groups, and like there's a million different ways you can do this. I literally ChatGPT'd this 2 seconds ago just because I teach sales in certain ways and how you do stuff. And what I mean by that, it's like prospecting, your approach, discovery, presentation, objections, close, follow-up, right? Like that's what ChatGPT kicked out. I'm just using a real general one. I've kind of got a different set that it's a whole other conversation for another day. But, you know, I think what's your North Star, right? So if you're a young real estate agent and you've made one sale or no sales and you're dying and you're not making any money, that's not a good position to be in, right?
Yeah, like it's a dangerous one for you.
Is it Joby, the pastor that we listened to?
Yeah.
And he was talking about like young guys, like, oh yeah, I'm 18 years old and I'm dating girls and I'm looking for my wife. Well, you don't have a job, bro. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't have a job and you don't have a house and you don't have a thing, how do you have a wife, right? And I think it's the same thing kind of in business. Like if you don't get your building blocks in the right spot, you're not going to have a lot of success doing that. Now, am I saying you're not going to have success? No, it's going to be an uphill battle. But if you look all in all, you know, I look at like when we started this thing, you were a very established agent. I've owned multiple businesses. I had the time and the bandwidth and the funds to do this. You had the funds and the time and the bandwidth to focus on doing it on our terms, how we wanted to do it. We built the model and a business plan, and we've executed over a couple of years, and we found success, right? When you jump into any job or any role or start any business or whatever that looks like, if you just say, I've got 30 cents in my pocket, I'm going to send it and go, the failure rate's way higher, right? And I'm not saying it's wrong and you can't do it. I'm just saying the failure rate's higher. So if you're going into sales and you've fallen back into sales, and what I mean by that is, how many people say, I'm going to school to learn to be a salesman, or I'm going to go learn my craft of being a salesman, or I'm going to go do it. No, you've had other jobs and you've hopped around, and all of a sudden you've fallen into this sales role, whether you're knocking on doors, whether you're doing this, whether you're doing that.
You've either seen the opportunity or it's out of necessity.
It's out of necessity. One of the two. You know what I mean? And I know there's a lot of money that could be made in sales. Here I am. I'm going to try it. Well, that's fine. But a lot of people fall back into sales where it wasn't their first intent from that standpoint. So you got to look at the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, and say, who am I, right? And if you're going to learn sales and you're going to be good at it, you can make some of the wealthiest people in the world do sales, right? Like, I mean, I would rather do sales and be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. I don't want to go sit in an office all day and have to deal with this person to do that. I would much rather be in the sales world, getting to interact and mingle on my time frame on how I want than that. So I think it's really good, but you got to look at that balance of what's my North Star. Whether you're a business or an individual, it really doesn't matter. What's your principles of your life that you're doing this on? Is it purely to make money? Well, that's like, people are going to see through that at some point. And if you're really good at sales, maybe they won't, and you'll be fine. But I think for our conversation today, you know, we're trying to guide with our North Star and be the best men we can be as leaders and people in our community and things like that. And I think long term, that's the side that you want to be on. Obviously, that's where we're putting our eggs in that basket.
For sure, yeah. And real estate's so unique compared to even other sales roles. For example, when you had a boat dealership, you had millions of dollars of inventory that you had on the books. You had the inventory. You were selling the inventory. Within real estate, it's so unique because this is why it's a lower barrier of entry and why you have a lot of one-offs. Is that, these are other people's assets that you are bringing somebody together on. You're not having to put down hundreds of thousands of dollars to hold the asset to sell it. And so one thing that's unique about that is there are a lot of people that can come into the game, lower cost of entry, and you can get a bunch of one-offs that do 1 or 2 sales a year, that kind of thing. The difference when we built this team is we were always looking long-term. Like, it has never been about, let's try to make 1 or 2 sales. When people are asking, how's business going? It's when I'm talking to them and they're, you know, you're in the real estate world, how's business? It's a hard answer because it's like, sure, we had a couple of closings this week, we had this going on, but what my mind is on is wrapped on the whole structure. Like, I'll talk to you for hours about where we're going as a group and the structure, and it's less about like the actual transactions in play. Does that make sense? And so when we go to that conversation, we get to that point, it's like, man, as we are working with clients, as we're talking to clients, we'll talk to clients that are in struggling issues, going through divorce. We'll talk to clients that are retiring and it's a really fun stage of life. We'll talk to clients that are growing families and needing a bigger home. And instead of having the conversation of, all right, how much can we make off this transaction? It's what's the goal for them? How do we get them to that point? And if now is not the right time, maybe you need to talk to your CPA before you make this purchase going into retirement. Let's get you connected with the right resource and move at that point, then try to get the sale today.
And I think that's the pro way to do it, right? You know what I mean? And that's what we've tried to do that. I think, to me, I'm going back to the sales process, right? Like, how do you quantify this into a teachable moment for people watching and for our agents and things like this? And this goes back to the shifting gears part. I feel like we're shifting gears now where we've done a lot of the pre stuff, like the prospecting. And then, like, this one says, again, this is ChatGPT, it says pre-approach, right? Research and prepare, approach, make first contact, blah, blah, blah. I think that's really hard because I think a lot of people don't know how to get started to do that. But then all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm here with a client. Now I got to do something. We got to have a conversation. Well, what's that conversation? Is it selling them on you're the best agent in the area? Is it you selling them on today's the perfect day to buy a house because interest rates are coming down? Is it you selling it, you know, and that's one mindset. Well, to me, I don't think we need to sell them on anything yet.
Those conversations are asking questions
100%
and seeing what
discovery.
Exactly.
It's a discovery conversation.
And honestly, most of the conversation is, do you really think this is the right time? Do you really think this is the right moment for this to happen as well?
Yep. Do you think you need to get this done? Okay, I'm working on my house and my plumbing's messed up and I called you to come in here. You need to go in there and ask them what's wrong with it. And then you need to ask the questions about, okay, my garbage disposal stopped working. Okay, we could fix that, but why did it stop working? Well, my toddler put a fork down it and turned it on. All right, well, then we need to get him a screen to make sure it doesn't get, you know what I mean? And it's going back a step, figuring stuff out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I think that a lot of people miss the mark to be true professional salespeople. Back to what we always say, go to your North Star. Why are you doing this? Let's ask questions to make sure that if that North Star is to help people and do a good service like it is for us, I think that's where you sit down and you have a conversation of them. Why are you moving? Do you think now's the right time to move? What's the finances look like? Who do you have in your corner? Your team. Who's doing your, loan paperwork? And, do you have construction people that you can have help fix some stuff or do, you know what I mean? And being able to put that whole package together. And I think as a long-term business, when you have all those professional referrals, you have the connections and the people, you're in there asking discovery questions on how you can help people. I think that's where you shift gears and go ahead of people, because it's not just meeting the next realtor that's, oh yeah, today's a perfect day to put a sign in your yard and get it sold.
Yeah.
It's not about that. And when it's not about that, it's funny because then I think we are always getting bombarded, especially with social media these days. Everything's a sales pitch to get us to, everything's buying our attention or fighting for our attention.
Yep.
And then everything that we have, people are trying to get us somewhere. That's just the human mind where we're going to get God, right? So when you start breaking that down, you say, look, I'm not here to sell you on anything. I just want to know what you need.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden they start talking and doing that. Well, then I don't want to say they sell themselves, because again, we're not really even trying to make a sale, but you find the needs. Oh, we're pregnant with our third kid. We never thought that was my situation with a house. We planned on having 2 kids. Well, now we have 3 kids. So our house was in the right side, blah, blah, blah. So you start peeling back the onions on that. And when you get that, that's what you're looking for as a salesperson. And then you got to make a decision. Can I help them or not? Right. Yeah. Because it doesn't, of course you always want to say yes. And a lot of people might, even though they go, man, that's a really bad idea. The best thing to do though is sometimes tell them, like, if they're going down the rabbit hole and it's like, man, I think there's a problem with how you're thinking on this. What if you did it this way? And they go, oh no, you're wrong. I want to do that regardless. I'm not saying don't make the sale and don't do it, but at least bring it to their attention. So you've CYA'd and everything's, you know what I mean? Everything's on the up and up from that standpoint.
For sure. So what about, real estate specific, I think it can be in any industry. You have a salesperson that they are stuck in that beginning phase of they don't have the pipeline set. They're looking at their life. This
is $1 million question here.
They have a kid, whatever, a family they're trying to provide for. They feel the pressure of, I got to make the sale, but they also want to do it right. What are some first steps? I can share a little bit about how we have done it, but I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on that. Like the initial steps of saying, I'm in this position.
Yeah.
What's my next step?
My thing is, you gotta, when I said you fall back into sales, sometimes you got to look at your resources of what you have and what you need and what that gap is. And if that gap's a lot, maybe a straight up sales role isn't the best situation right now. Maybe it's going into that part-time. Like if it's looking at it, I think a lot of times people take jobs out of, I'm going to go make a lot of money doing this. I'm going to go make a lot of money selling vacuums on people's front door. That's a 60s and 70s thing, but let's just go down that rabbit hole. I don't know that today you can really do that per se. You know what I mean? Now there's tons of opportunity to go have a job that you could be more stable to do that, and then figure out, okay, if I really want to be a salesman and really craft my skills, and it doesn't matter, take sales out of it. I want to be the best plumber. I want to be the best car mechanic. I want to be the best doctor. I want to be the best lawyer. Like there's a lot of effort that goes into that to actually be the top tier of anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of jobs truly out there that if you're not good, especially if you're in a sale, I'm going to say sales, but like if you're
commission,
if you own your own business or your income is dependent on your skill set. If you don't have the ability and the wherewithal and the drive to be the best or to try to learn it and to do that, how do you expect to make the money that the best make if you're not there? Does that make sense? So I think that's where you got to look back in the mirror on yourself and say, okay, my gap is this. I want to make $10,000 a month, and I think I could do that selling real estate. Well, if you have to make $6,000 to survive and you've made zero and you've got nothing else going on, well, there's a problem there. You know what I mean? So I think you have to have realistic expectations. And I think people sometimes put themselves in situations where I have to make an immoral or unjust decision based on my here and now.
The money work.
We've all been there. Everybody's been there. But on the same token, it's just like saving for retirement. If you never start and you never save $1, you're not going to get to 65 and have millions of dollars. Right? It's just not going to happen. So if you don't have a plan, if you start and you don't have a plan to get better as you go, I just made this sale and it was like, whew, I made it. It could have gone bad, but it worked. And then you get in the next sale and whew, I made it. It could have been bad. Like you're going to get bit at whatever it is. Whatever industry it is, you're going to get bit someday doing that. And it's one of those that, are you trying to get better at it? And I think that's where I look at it. You got to go and you got to craft your skill and you got to have that drive to be the best. If you're watching YouTube videos and you're watching dirt biking videos, not how to be a better plumber, or how to be a better salesperson, or how to be a better whatever it is that you're doing, and you're not spending your time doing that, do you really want to be in that industry to begin with?
Yeah. And sales in general, somebody said it at an award ceremony we were at recently about how in real estate specific, but it's across the board, insurance sales, anything, is that there's so many people that are flash and pan people. They jump in, they either don't make it, whatever happens, and they're out. I think the best thing, and this was heavily on you when we launched Elevate, is we said anything we make on this, we're putting right back into the business. For the first year, it was literally all about building pipeline. We had trusted customers. We were doing things well. We were doing things like ethically the way that we should. But instead of getting a closing and taking that money and putting it into our pockets, we put it right back into investing in pipeline, because we know in business is, like I said earlier, when the pipeline is full, it allows you to say, hey, if this deal isn't working out, we've got 15 more right here that we're working through, and our baselines.
You don't have to take every client.
Exactly. And it allows you to take the right clients. Yep. And it was hard. And it was heavy when you see these big commission checks coming in and you watch them go back out toward marketing, toward branding, toward long term. But I think that that's the most important thing, is to build something in sales. It has to be long term. This 90%, 78, 87% of agents that fail in the first 2 years, that's why. They take the commission check, they spend it on what they want to, and then they just expect the next one to come. Instead, we take that and put it all right back into what we're doing, and we're making sure that we're investing in the future, just like for a retirement account. And that's been the biggest thing for us. It's been able to position us to make those decisions.
And I think that goes back to what we said earlier about, we did this as a business with a strategy, and there wasn't, we needed money to survive. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, we've all taken credit cards out, or we've all lived off something that we didn't have, hoping that it was going to work, right? And you got to position yourself wisely. Yeah. Like, you can't just go all out, for sure. Yeah, but that's allowed us to do the win. You know what I mean? And what I love about it is, you say that we've invested in the future, in the future, in the future, in the future. Well, we turned on some special marketing that we've been working on. It's been a year process to get this up and going, and not just doing an ad or doing this or doing that, but like building the whole ecosystem. And I mean, this week we turned it on 2 weeks ago. We've got 15 leads in the last
8 days, 10 days,
10 days. And we've got 50% appointments set with people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So, it's weird. It's a weird dichotomy for me. I don't like being in front of people, but obviously if you look back at our business within Elevate specifically, our faces are everywhere. Yep. Like, we've been pushing that. And the whole idea is we've got to make that connection so that our team of agents can have business to run as well, right? And so as a business owner, as a new agent, invest in getting out there, because that's the number one step to start building that pipeline.
Yep.
So you get that first deal closed, you see that super nice check, you're thinking, I'm going to go get Louis Vuittons or whatever. Instead, you get with somebody, strategically make a plan, first of all, with a CPA, understanding where your money's going, with somebody that's in marketing specifically. As a real estate agent, you have so many roles. You're a negotiator, you're a marketer, you're a salesperson, you're an expert in the real estate world. There's so many roles. But if you can build the team around you to say, hey,
and that's the biggest mistake I see in small business is you have to wear all the hats. And you can't afford not to, right? Like, and there's a phase of that. Yeah, there's a phase of that it just is what it is. And I think that's where you see some maybe smaller businesses grow faster, because if you are a business owner that wears all the hats, you're good at social media, you're good at marketing, or you're good at this, you're good at that, or you're good at that, maybe they elevate a little bit faster. But if you suck at it, that's fine. Own it. Like, that's cool. Go find somebody that's good at it. You probably have somebody in your box or in your friend group, between, people at your church and your wife's friends and your friends, that is somebody who's probably good that can help you at this, that, and the other. And as you gain money, to be able to say, I've got a really good CPA, I got a really good attorney, and I got a really good marketing.
PR marketing.
To at least get some strategy and put stuff together. And guess what? AI is great these days. You can build a strategy and a plan, and what used to cost tens of thousands of dollars you can do on the down low, and you can learn, you at least can know the knowledge to do it where you can justify your time to get yourself.
And the crazy thing is, some of the funny things, the conversations we've even had from this podcast, is finding out there's a lot of businesses that are in this same mindset that want to work together. How many connections have we made with just businesses that want to get their name out there? They do a great job. They want to get our name. Like, there's so many connection points that we can make. And there's a lot of people in this industry that have the same mindset. They want to do things well. For us, we came into this thing thinking we want to elevate the standard in the real estate world. We understand that there's a lot of thoughts on realtors and on the sales side. How can we make the standard take a step forward? And that's what we're excited to do. That's why we want to share our system, share the processes, understand, like, this is what we're doing. We'll be an open book, because we want every transaction to look like this, rather than to just be a one-off to just try to get a quick buck. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, well, hey, thank you for joining us today. If you are an agent that is in that world, or a business owner that's like, man, I'm in the point where I'm like feeling the pressure. I've got to get the sale, but I want to do things right. Give us a call. We'd love to have a conversation and talk through our strategies, what we've done, show you exactly where we've invested in making the pipeline open to where we can not have to worry about the next deal. Rather, we're worried about making sure our clients are served well. So thank you for joining us. We'll talk soon.
We'll see you next week on the Founders Table.